Hey, Kelly, it is so good to see you. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me and for all the stuff on your website. And I've been going down the rabbit hole. Usually I just go through everything on podcasts by myself. But when I was looking through yours, my older son became part of the process. And it was so much fun, not just to listen to episodes and look at your website together, but really talking about all the different things and seeing what he latched onto that you guys were saying and speaking to my older son who's 12. My 10-year-old's like, podcast, whatever, let's go watch airplanes. Cool. But I just wanted to share that it's been so much fun as a family, really diving into all of your resources and conversations.
Oh gosh, we're so thankful. That is really fun. I love that. We're right in the middle of a series where we're kicking off the school year, and we're right in the middle of launching our resource library for families so they can get resources in the San Diego area and out from there. And so we saw your book and we're like, this is perfect. We're so excited to have you on today.
Yeah, what an incredible resource, for the families. So, but starting out in the beginning, like, can you tell us a little bit about your story, the journey with your family, the journey with special needs, and then kind of what spurred you on to write a book and to really help these families?
Yes. So I'm a writer by trade. Before I had kids, my job was to come up with ideas for talking animal movies, which is awesome, but also I have no real world skills. So, I think it's no accident that my book is very conversational and weirdly fun, even though it's like, whoa, a book about paperwork and planning and how to do all this. Sounds real boring. But with this book, I felt like if it feels like eat your broccoli, then it fails because no one wants to read that. And we just feel worse because it's on our nightstand because somebody gave it to us. And we totally don't want to read about paperwork. So I have this book. This book stemmed from my own experience. I have two amazing boys. My husband is fortunately a partner in all things. Our boys are now um, 11 and 12 years old, and they're just the best, and they are the best friends, and they just chase each other and push each other in the pool and run around and all crazy things. Our younger son, Aaron, has multiple disabilities. And for him, what that looks like is he has an undiagnosed genetic syndrome, and we've done every test science has available. We still don't have an answer. Maybe we will, maybe we won't ever in his lifetime. And within that, he's been diagnosed with autism, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, cortical vision impairment, microcephaly. He has a feeding tube, sensory processing, gross motor, fine motor, communication, cognitive, behavioral challenges across the board. So he's like, I'm just an overachiever. I'm just going to check all boxes. And we're like, cool, let's go with that. And all of that, as you guys know, especially being in this world, talking to so many people in this world, um, it's not a like, oh, you poor thing. Like, it is an adjustment to, like, we had no idea about any of this before we started on this journey.
Right?
Hmm.
We're just on it because we're parents and we love our kids, and we're doing our best by both of their kids to support them fully in becoming whoever it is they are becoming, which is the same thing we're doing for both kids. We are just following their lead because one is in many therapy appointments, has a communication device, like needs medical supports, all of this. And the other one, like, plays the tuba and does magic. So different paths, but each
Sure.
two, like, what is the fullest version of you?
Oh my goodness, that's so true, right?
Yeah.
And I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. You know, our kids are so different. And you mentioned getting into this and not knowing anything and how overwhelming this is. And I just think, we know a lot about autism, and that's, our nonprofit. We started it not because of just autism, but to surround families with all different diagnoses. So I love that your book is this overarching perspective,
Hmm.
and that you validate that fact that so many of us come to this not knowing anything. We jump in and we're drowning in paperwork. And what do we do now?
Yes.
And so I'd love for you to
Yes.
share, a little bit more about like what it is your book provides. What are you doing, within the chapters? It's amazing. Covers
Yes.
so many things.
Thank you. I'm
Yes.
so thrilled with how it turned out. Because my son checks so many boxes and we've dealt with the medical, the behavioral, the cognitive, the like everything. He might be the only person in the world with his diagnosis, but he has overlap with pretty much everybody. Um, it is the book I wish I had had a decade ago when we started on this path,
Mm.
because there are so many questions I didn't even know to ask, and I'll be learning for forever. It would be nice if it was possible to have a here is the one thing that's going to work for everybody,
Mhm.
but that's not a thing. So what I set out to create, and I'm very excited that I believe I achieved, was here is a roadmap so that you can build this journey for yourself, for your child, for your family, for this particular disability based on what is real for your family and your experience. And so it each chapter is a different topic, whether it is working with your medical team or therapies, IEPs, um, financial planning, future care plans, calling your insurance company, which is
Mm.
never going to be
Mhm.
fun. The insurance piece, the money piece, like all of the different things and all of the stuff. It has personal stories from our life, letters from fellow parents, which are just incredible, interviews with over 40 experts who are experts in all of these things, doctors, lawyers, everybody else. The lots of bullet points. It is written with like white space and lists of here's what worked for me. Here are the templates and the worksheets and the forms that I have created over the last decade. And here's a list of questions to ask yourself and where to start. I wanted this to feel doable for everybody and for people to read this and feel like, oh, I actually understand my insurance plan or how to read my insurance plan so that I can gain understanding, actually understand how to do the stuff in a way that makes the stuff feel empowering instead of frightening. Because man, this stuff is so much. And I love in one of your previous episodes, I'm not recalling which one, your guest said that the disability adds additional complexity.
Oh, boy,
And
does
my
it
son
ever.
and I just looked
Mhm.
at each other and we just high-fived and we're like, that is exactly it. It's not the like, oh, poor you, your kid's disabled. It's not like, oh, isn't this amazing? My kid's disabled. It's there is additional complexity, and I feel like that's it. That's what the book does. Is it says like this is complex, huh? Your child's well-being, livelihood, existence may depend on you being able to navigate this stuff. And by the way, nobody's going to teach you how to do it. Good luck.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And caregiving is a job. So we need the training for how to do the job of all the stuff. And that's what this book is.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, it's so wonderful. I just imagine the conversation I just had recently with parents and they're navigating it. It's like not only is there all this information, but there is kind of a order that you want to go through. And so being able to see that, you can just see all of a sudden, at first it's overwhelmed on all this stuff, but then once they start saying, here, this is the next step, this is the next step, this
Yes.
is the next step, you get this,
Yes.
then you start feeling, okay, it's something that we can navigate. It's something that we can progress and so forth like that. So I love the fact that you have a book there, especially something to read. It's like you can sit there and check the boxes on where we're going. It's
Mm-hmm.
huge, then it takes that stress level that's always present in our families down a little bit and saying, okay, we'll just check that next box and then there's always a waiting time too for them to get back to you with those resources. But so appreciate how you've laid this out for us. One of the things we know is like some of the programs that are around the country are nationwide, right? So they're federally funded and so forth like that. So they're consistent throughout every state. But some things, I think we're both in California, are unique to the state. How did you go about like addressing? I mean, we got 50 states, and even if you start thinking internationally, people are far different in how they might be funding. How did you address some of those things and make it so that anybody can pick this up and find it useful?
Yes, I love that you asked that because it was so important to me to make this applicable wherever you are. So, as you mentioned, my experiences with the systems in California, my best friend in Texas, her experience is very different. And I really address big picture that even under the same federal guidelines, services and supports are delivered very differently, whether that's social services, whether that's school, delivered very differently, not just from state to state, but county, from one county to the next, one city to the next, and can even be, and I'm in a huge city, depending on where you live within that city, they can be delivered differently. So it's really about knowing big picture, what is your child entitled to under law based on disability, and having an understanding of that, and then knowing what questions to ask to find out what is available and what is appropriate for your child. And school is a great example because my child absolutely needs different things than other people's kids. And if I am trying to fight the district for things that aren't actually available, then I'm wasting everyone's time and stressing myself out. But if I can educate myself as to what is available and what is appropriate, then I can really make the best use of everyone's time, including my kids.
Mm.
Absolutely. So good. I just want to read off some of the chapter titles because you do cover so many great areas. And by the way, again, the book is called Everything No One Tells You About Parenting a Disabled Child, Your Guide to the Essential Systems, Services, and Supports. And so you go through chapters that are everyone, everything no one tells you about getting comfortable with disability, everything no one tells you about diagnosis. And it goes on to cover working with your medical team, therapies, insurance and government, education, the school system, disability rights and advocacy, financial planning and future care plans. We know a lot about that. Inclusion in your community, right? And what it looks like for you as a parent caregiver, which is so important to those of our listeners. And so it's just such a phenomenal compilation
Resource,
of
yeah.
exactly resource for so many topics that our families are going to be dealing with no matter the diagnosis. So it's great. Thank you so much. And when we're looking at it, we're thinking there's a lot of technical topics in this book, right? And so you did interview experts. Do you want to share a little bit about who you talked with and what all they covered, right?
Yes, I am so thrilled with the experts in this book. I very intentionally sourced diverse experts, many of whom are disabled themselves, and people ranging from very high level big picture experts versus a, a woman who is a nurse who was our former home health nurse, talking about what it looks like when a home health nurse comes into your house, what it looks like when you're working in a hospital with your nursing team. So it's an intentionally broad range of experts. I'm thrilled with all of them. One that I'm getting chills just thinking about is the book ends in the conclusion with my interview with Judy Heumann, who's known as the mother of the disability rights movement.
Mhm.
And it ended up being one of her final interviews before she passed away.
That's amazing.
And it was really remarkable. She was number one on my list of interviews from the time I knew I wanted to write a book. And of course, I was like, she's never gonna like, no, she's not gonna agree to this. Are you kidding me? Like, she's the one who's like making sure the ADA got passed in 1990. Like, she's a little busy for me. And I didn't reach out because obviously she's gonna say no. Once I finally did reach out to her, I just sent an email through her website. She responded that day very quickly with so much enthusiasm for this project because she immediately saw the need.
Mhm.
And we talked about, and she addresses, like, it is messy. I am not disabled. My child is. I'm entering into this community as an ally without the firsthand experience. And to be able to talk about the messiness of that, how do I not take up all the air in the room when I need to let the people with the firsthand experience talk? But also, I am my son's parent.
Mhm.
Like, I will be his caregiver for life. He will not live independently. And how do I not erase my own story as a caregiver within that? And it was really kind of remarkable to be able to have these high level discussions with her, with Rebecca Coakley, who's one of the heads of the Ford Foundation running their disability justice initiative, with Dr. Brian Scottco, who has a remarkable genetics and Down syndrome clinic out of UMass, um, with so many people who are doing the financial planning, doing, litigating the special education cases, all of these things. Um, we all need experts in our lives
Mm.
Yes, we do.
because I didn't know I would need a primer on neurology and gastroenterology and genetics and special education law and like how the heck to order diapers and get them to be delivered by the medical supply company. Like, man, it is just so much. And I'm so thankful to my experts, again, many of whom are disabled themselves, who were incredibly forthcoming with all the things and acknowledging that parents need an entry point into this world where we're allowed to ask questions and get it wrong and do better and really learn on the road of best serving our children exactly as they are.
Yeah, I still love this. I can remember being in a meeting and literally, after loads of time researching and so forth, and the person on the other side, as we're trying to appeal for additional resources for our daughter, says, "Oh, you've done your homework." It's like you
Mm-hmm.
know what you're talking about. You just triggered those key words that open the floodgate of resources that your kid needs, and you by writing this book are empowering so many parents on what their rights actually are, but they become hidden because of all the things with budgets and things like that. So really, really appreciate it. With all the research you did in this book, which I mean, it's vast and interviewing so many experts and just empowering, like I say, parents, how did you balance all that, writing a book with, then the day to day of raising a child with special needs and then, with your whole family?
Yeah, I didn't shower for a year. I'm
There
just
it
kidding. Right?
We were going to ask
Like,
about self-care.
people ask how I write a book, and I say very slowly. I sold the book proposal and had an amount of time to write the book. I did it almost entirely while the kids were at school because, man, it is not only is it hard to do things when they're out of school, but also I want to be a mom
Mhm.
and like let's goof off and go out for ice cream and go to the beach or the park or the library and let's just be a mom hanging out with her kids. My kids are young and they still want to hang out with me, so I'm going to take that and run with it. Um the time crunch is very real, and so many people say like, "Oh, I really want to write a book." And my question to them is, do you want to write a book or do you want to have written a book? Because those are actually two different
Mhm.
things.
Uh-huh.
And I encourage everyone to write their story. Like, I'm weirdly good at paperwork. Cool, let's make that into a book. What? But I did. And if you want to write a book, if you want to go back to school, if you want to, learn how to make better casseroles, like whatever the thing is, you really have to set aside that time for it. And I really had to get super disciplined about putting time on my calendar to write, to research, to do the interviews, to revise it a million times over so that I would turn off my internet and I would do the thing. Um, I was very fortunate that we didn't have too many major health crises as the book was being written. We had a couple in there,
Mm.
and as a parent caregiver, I know that anything I do professionally, writing a book or otherwise, I need to be able to step away from at a moment's notice for an indeterminate length of time, especially when the medical needs outpace the number of hours in the day. So it was absolutely challenging at times to make the deadlines and do the things. I felt so passionately about getting this information out there to other families, about everyone having equal access to, as you were saying, those magic words to get you those resources, that really kept me going. Because as you know, being a parent is all the things, and it can be hard to find time to make your own projects happen.
Uh,
Absolutely.
Yeah, and just when you think you hit that milestone, there's some independence and you're not, something else
Yeah.
comes and it's a new challenge, we might say.
Yeah, totally. And I'm looking at this page out of your book of your two guys, right? And it's a picture of your two sons holding each other, hanging out, just two brothers in front of a fountain. And let's not forget, right? This whole book and this whole reason for putting these things out here, our nonprofit, is because of our kids, obviously. And so I just love that you speak to that with the fact that this is going to hopefully help families be more efficient at what they need to do so they can balance that and be more present with their children. Because I can remember being on a floor,
Mhm.
calling our insurance and begging them because this was a time when regional center was no longer covering the behavioral healths, right? And so we had to switch over, and insurance wasn't aware of that yet, and it just was such a battle. Um, but there's this shining little girl face in front of me. I need to pay attention to her, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I love that you brought the personal stories in, and that you're focused on, what's at the core of this. These are families. We want to make sure that they're getting what they need, and knowing how to get there and not having to reinvent the wheel. I love that you mentioned that.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
often, right? We're
Yes.
stuck in this place of having to reinvent the wheel where why is that? Why do we not have, these pathways straightforward to all the different resources? I mean, there's such a quagmire as to why, but
Yes. Well, and also I think this notion of all of us are reinventing the wheel, and most of this stuff has already been done by someone else.
right.
Mhm.
That's why resources like yours are so valuable, because the sooner you can connect with other families on this journey,
Mm.
whether or not the diagnosis is the same, whether or not the age of the child is the same, whatever it is, the sooner we can connect with other people, the sooner we can find better, faster, more efficient, more effective ways to do this to serve our kids and have those moments. Like, I'm so glad you mentioned that picture, the boys in front of the fountain, and like the sun was coming through and there was a rainbow in it. And in the picture, my older son is, you can't really tell, but I can tell, is like trying to keep my younger son from climbing into the fountain. And I'm like, just stay there. And then, like, moments later, there was like a literal hornet's nest that was stumbled into, and then it was like all of the like, that picture is so beautiful and it's so wonderful, and it is like all the things. It is the diaper explosion that day, it is the don't climb into the fountain, it is the like hornet's nest, it is the we are very loud in the space center exhibit and everybody's looking and we're like, cool, it's Saturday, what's up? Because it is all the things, and we need to give ourselves not just the permission but also the time to just be parents. And if we can put the paperwork and the planning and everything in a place so that it feels like that is sustainable to get it done, then we get to be parents, we get to enjoy our kids. For us, leaving the house is a whole production.
Mhm.
You know what, we have more fun than anybody.
Oh,
Maybe not more fun than you guys, but more fun than everybody else.
Without a doubt, and if anything, I'm hearing with it, it's like you can get to that place where you can get a perspective on the life that we live and all the craziness and the chaos and a never dull moment, but then actually just embrace and enjoy it, like, and realize it, not get stuck in so much to do all the time. If anything, we're always looking for something to be more efficient, and certainly this book did. Helps the families do that. One of the things we always like to do
Sorry, we're gonna
is
cut that
tap
for a
our
sec.
son on, tap our husband on
He skipped a question. We'll just pause for a sec. We'll edit it. No worries. Yeah, I'm gonna ask that one. I'll just start with it. It's okay.
Okay.
We'll pause. We'll pause. There's stuff in the way, so he can't see it. So that
You
was
were, yeah.
beautiful. Thank
Okay.
you for sharing that, Kelley. Seriously. Oh my goodness. Let me look at this real quick. Yeah, it's that one. All right. So Kelley, I mean, we're talking about this and being parents, right? And looking back, I know you've had several years of journey here. We've certainly had that. We have a 20-year-old, you have a 12 and a 10-year-old. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah, our younger one actually just turned 11.
Oh my goodness. How does that happen, right? Not allowed, not allowed. But looking back, speaking to the parents that are listening, as a parent, is there anything you, looking back, would want to tell yourself as a new parent on that journey? And then on the flip side, is there something that you're really glad you did?
Yes. So the fact that I'm tearing up as you're asking that question, and I'm over a decade into this, says a lot, because so many of us look back at that time at the beginning and it's hard. And I felt like I was just falling in this bottomless pit. We didn't have any answers. We're still looking for a lot of answers. All anyone was telling me was how tragic this is. I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh, this is terrible. I don't know how you're going to do this. What is this going to do to your other kid? Like all kinds of pity. Like it's never helpful. Can we just agree? Like, no,
Mhm.
nobody needs that business. And like I just wanted somebody to say, like, hey, your baby has amazing hair. And so I was like, yeah, he has amazing hair. So of course, I just felt awful. And I now realize like totally inadequate because I felt like I have no idea how to do this. And like, here's this baby. We started when my son was a baby who I just love so much. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to give him what he needs.
Mhm.
Again, the fact that I am crying over a decade later says a lot.
Mhm.
And I thought this horrible feeling was forever
Mm.
because all anybody was giving me was tragedy and pity. So this must be so bad that no one can say anything else. So of course I felt terrible. So what I would tell myself that, see, I can't even say this without crying. I wish someone had said, you will feel better. However terrible you are feeling now,
Hmm.
this feeling is not forever. And the bridge between how you're feeling now and however many years from now, when you feel like, you know what, there's a lot, but we got this, is getting to know your child and falling in love with your child for the person they are. Obviously, you love them because they're your child, but anybody who meets my kid, like this kid is like the mayor of Trader Joe's. Like he
Love it.
is just like, I want to dance for the lettuces. I want to wave at you, stranger, because you look like you need a wave. Hi. I'm like all the things. Like he is pretty amazing
Hmm.
as a human.
Yeah.
And getting to know him and following his lead, like that's the thing that pulled me out of that, like, oh, this is a bottomless pit. Like it's not bottomless. You'll hit the bottom a few times. But everybody has a hard thing. This is my hard thing. Who he is as a human is not hard, but the, to your podcast point, additional complexity Like, if my feeding tube supplies don't show up on time, like, that's hard. If they
Mhm.
Mhm.
give us the wrong seizure meds, which they did one time, that's hard.
Mm.
Like, there is stuff that we need to talk about the hard so that our kids understand, like, who you are as a human is
Mhm.
great. Like, you're good, not you. It's the insurance company, it's the pharmacist, it's the like whatever. Most pharmacists are amazing, by the way.
That's right.
And I wish that, we had any sort of crystal ball into the future back then of like, not just, oh, it's going to be okay, but like, oh, see, here I got me to
Mhm.
cry.
Yeah,
It's going to be really good. Like,
Yeah, it's
both
really
of my, they're great.
It's really, you get to this point and the life you expected to have, the journey you expected to have with kids, you got to let go of it. And that's the hard, but then you pick up this life you never would have expected. And what you mentioned is a lot like our daughter, this unconditional love that so many of these kids just portray to others, and they teach us how to live. They
Mhm.
teach us a way of just embracing life and embracing other people. And like you said, being an amazing human being.
Yeah.
And that is just a real special thing. And, I think really you already kind of answered this some, but maybe you want to add to it. One of the things we always like to do is ask our guest, what is one thing you'd like our listeners to hear to bring hope for the road ahead?
Would love the listeners to hear, number one, that feeling, if you're feeling awful, like validate that, sit in
Mhm.
that, like allow that to be. Don't just tell yourself like, oh, I need to change my mindset. We all have preconceptions, and that's what we're giving up on, is our preconceptions. We are not giving up on having dreams for our child. Like, I've got all kinds of dreams for both of my kids, but there are a ton of preconceptions that I'm still working on letting go of,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm letting my child show me. And the sooner we can connect with other families who are on this journey, whether it's listening to this podcast, connecting with an in-person community, connecting with organizations, connecting with online communities, the sooner we find that community who gets it and has been there, and also the sooner we can get information about disability from disabled people, it is easier than ever to follow organizations, individuals, leaders, influencers online who are sharing firsthand experience. The sooner we can follow the lead of people who are disabled is such a shorthand to learning the reality and the, oh, it's not tragic and it's not the best. It just is,
Mm-hmm.
just like all of us. And we really can learn about experience from other caregivers, from disabled individuals, so that our preconceptions that are leading us to feel not so great, those fade away in favor of who our family is and who our kid really is.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. That's right. Oh, Kelley, thank you so much for sharing. This has been a great time just hearing about the resources that you've researched and knowing that there's a pathway forward for our families. There really is. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of hope on that hard road. So keep going, families. Thank you, Kelley. We so appreciate
Yeah,
it.
appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me. I wasn't expecting to like crying and being a
Oh,
blubbering mouth.
w-
Welcome. This life is all the things. And
right.
thank you guys for all that you are doing to support families.